And you were talking about your dad being sick, I think, didn't you say?
Yes, ma'am. So he was
Yeah,
diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic
pancreatic.
cancer, and
Right.
we got that diagnosis in the beginning of January.
Yeah.
And he's went through one round of a light chemo concoction. He actually goes for his second round tomorrow, but he's
Well,
progressively gaining more and more pain.
he's going to go really soon, I think. And, the nine in a 7 year of a 9 and a 9 month for you, seven's often where people go anyway, because they're aligning with spirit. Nine's often the letting go of the body. So, I mean, I would say he's going to go in February sometime, but maybe not because the one is then catalytic and it can bring it in. So between February and March, I that's what I've seen before.
Be sure to hit subscribe and mash the bell.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Thomas FreeMe TV and Podcast Show. I know it's been a minute, and I have a couple things to talk about today. But this is a great episode that I'm going to leave you guys with. The first one that I'm going to put out here for 2025. And it's been a tumultuous year, man. Can I get some amens on that? 2025 has been a tumultuous year. It's been a crazy year, man. And it all started with my pops getting diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer shortly before Christmas of 2024. My father had went into the hospital with some E. coli. He had got E. coli from his dog. His dog was licking him, and he caught E. coli. And one night he had fell over, couldn't get up, very, very weak, goes to the hospital. They diagnose him with E. coli. And not only that, but they see something that they don't like, and they believe is pancreatic cancer, which they also believe could be late stage 3, early stage 4. And we had to wait till January 3rd. January 3rd rolls around, welcoming in 2025, and my father is positive for stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and he deteriorated rapidly. It's crazy, I was there with him all the way through, my fiance Candy and I, and my bonus mother. My bonus mother's been in my life since I was, 5 years old, 6 years old, and she's my second mom. But it was just pretty much us three. My brother came up from Key West, off and on, and did what he could, stayed. But it's very, very hard, right? Seeing our father deteriorate in the fashion that he was, pretty much unable to sustain any kind of anything. He needed help with everything, and it just got to the point to where I kind of was his full-time nurse. I was taking care of him full-time. Hospice came in and did their thing, showed me what I needed to do and such. And one of my father's last wishes was that he just didn't have to take medicine no more and be stuck with tubes, and he was just tired of it all. He did try one of the chemos, and I think the blast of chemo at his age with his pacemaker and defibrillator just expedited the process. He just couldn't take it, and we just did the one dose, and that was it. And he was done. He just didn't want it anymore. And he was just done, tired, and just was ready. And me as the son, I just wanted to abide by all his wishes and make sure that his transition was as comfortable as possible. And my fiance Candy was there, and us three, we just walked him all the way out. after his diagnosis in January 3rd, it was just over 3 months later, my father traveled on. I'll say that day was the most spiritual day of my life. I've been in the room with God on several occasions, especially during my incarceration and during my transition, but particularly, in solitary confinement. I knew that he was in that cell with me that night, but on this day I knew that God was present and was watching and waiting. And my father, I don't know how much he really suffered, but the thing of it is that, of course, my father that day, on Saturday, March 8th, throughout that day, deteriorated pretty quickly. He couldn't really talk anymore. He was in his bed and couldn't get out of the bed anymore. But him and I understood each other just with eye contact. I knew what he needed. I knew what made him comfortable. And it just became very, very hard. We had a gathering because my father, his brain was coherent through this whole process. His brain was sharp as a tack through the whole ordeal. Was aware, was acute, knew what we were saying, knew what he wanted, knew everything. He was just absolutely acute. Even though that his body had given up on him, his brain was that of a child still, as it always was. And that was the hardest thing for us because we knew that he could understand us and hear us. And we all just kept gathering around him just for one last hug and to, pray with him and just to hear him, mumble that he loves us or just for us to just tell him that we loved him. We knew that he was coherent through it. And it was very, very hard, very hard. And we just came together, us three, and decided that because we were administering him the morphine and the doctor's orders was to administer it every 2 hours. And it was just hard for us to do that because he was just coherent. And we're kind of caught in that limbo as, is he going to get better or is this it? And we would just give him the morphine when he would ask for it, when the pain would become severe and he would ask for it. But one thing I noticed was every time he opened his eyes, right, because, we would give him morphine, he would sleep for hours and hours and hours. And instead of administering that morphine continuously as he was sleeping, it would wear off and he would wake up, and as he opened his eyes, he just didn't want to see this world anymore. He was ready to move on. And he had said his goodbyes to us, and we had said his goodbyes to him, and he said his goodbye to his dog, and we were all around the bed, and he saw everybody that he wanted to see, and he was ready to go, and I just saw that every time he was opening his eyes, it was just starting that process all over in a way, And so, the family, we came together and we just decided that, it's really time to just start administering this every 2 hours because I don't want him to wake up anymore. I don't want him to see this anymore. It was time for him to be free. It was us that had to let go. And so, we all agreed on that. And, I just started giving him the morphine every couple hours. It was just the most painful thing in my life. One of the hardest things that I've ever had to do in my life was to keep injecting this shit into him, knowing that it was time. And we went on through the night like that. This was Friday night, and Saturday, we were there, and around 4:30, 4:45, I'm just going in, and I'm sitting in the chair that we got next to his bed, and I would just pray for God to end it, pray for the suffering to end, and for him to go home to the ones who were waiting on him on the other side and such. And I was just praying for this man's suffering to end. And it was about 4:58. I go in again and I sit down and I just start praying again, and something just washed over me. Something just washed over me and told me all these times that I've been in here praying for my father's suffering to end, not one time have I gotten down on my knees. I would sit in the chair, lean over his body and such, but not one time have I gotten on my knees. And in that moment, I pushed the chair aside, I got on my knees, and I just started praying. I laid my head on his chest, and I just started praying about all that I've gone through, and the transitions that I've made in my life, and the sacrifices I've made in my life for God after I've realized how I abandoned him. And since I've been home, just all the things that I've done and sacrificed in the name of ego and pride, to help others, to just to help repair some of the bad that I've done in life. And these were my prayers. And at 5 o'clock, my fiance Candia came to the doorway, and little did I know she was taking a picture. And it happened. The process happened in that moment. And Miss Candy went and got, Mama Rose, and she came in, and we all got in the bed and just held him and made sure that he felt our love and the peace and the calmness and the quietness that was in the room. And just in that instant, my father, who has been unable to move for several days now, a couple days, just started lifting his arms up towards the ceiling, and went to sit up, and his eyes were fixated on the ceiling, and his chest shot out, like something had just pulled his chest, and he just laid back in his bed, and he was gone, and I knew it. I knew he was gone. I told Mama Rose, he's gone, baby. He's left. And his eyes just fixated on me, and just grew distant. And I just rubbed his head and wished him well on his journey and told him I'd see him soon. And that was it, life goes on from that. We just pick up the pieces and mourn and move on. And for me, I lost the only person that I knew in my heart inexplicably had my back. Without question. Didn't even question what was going on. All the times I would call at 3 o'clock in the morning in jail needed to be bonded out. I'll be right down, sir. We talk about it afterwards, but not one time did he ever leave me in that place if he could get me out. And my dumb little ass would get out and go right back in, you know? And these are the transgressions and the burdens that I have to carry with me for the rest of my life are those things. All the time I spent away from my family and all the things that I've missed. And I know that we say we can move on and things of that nature, and it's not regret. People say that it's regret, but if anybody has walked through my fire, they understand what I'm talking about. You know, it's not regret. I love who I am today, and I don't regret any of it, because in order for me to love who I am today, I have to love what I've been through. So, you know, it's knowing that I've accepted my past and all these things for what they are, and know that I would not be who I am today without these transgressions that I've overcome. But it just still hurts. You always have that, you know, what if in the back of your mind. And I think all of us in life have that ordeal to overcome, you know, the what ifs. What if I would have done this differently? So that's always going to be there in some sense. You know, and that's just one of the issues that I've been going through in 2025. You know, there's just been a multitude of hits, and it's just been a very tumultuous year so far, and I don't know how it's been for others, but the politics, the market, the economy, just everything is in turmoil. All of that ties into this episode with Miss Penney Peirce, because this numerology chart was prior to my father passing, and we'll get into, you know, the potential marriage between my fiance and my father's passing. You know, we get into that and how the numbers within the numerology chart show exactly what was going to happen. It's crazy. But when we get into this numerology chart, it's a crazy thing. This is the first time that I've ever had my numerology chart done, and extremely blessed to have it done by, of course, Miss Penney Peirce. I mean, that's wild, right? So, extremely blessed in that, and thankful, ever so grateful that Penney Peirce has become a very dear friend of mine, and I can have her on the show a multitude of times to talk about issues, because she has shared that she just absolutely loves being on the show. So I'm absolutely grateful for that. I'm thankful for that. And I'll pretty much leave you guys with that, you know. Once again, as always, I would not be here doing this if it wasn't for my subscribers, if it wasn't for my listeners. I do this for you guys, and I appreciate you guys so much, and all my new listeners throughout the world who have been picking me up and listening to me, to continue doing so as I've been going through these things. You may or may not know that I'm also building a charity, a nonprofit. And so it's just, I have a multitude of things going on, but this is my love, coming back and sharing my life with you guys, in hopes that y'all just kind of see what I've gone through and maybe take an alternative route, you know, and get out of the fire before it burns you. It's no fun. It's nothing to be in, and it's ruined my life in so many different facets, going back to the what ifs, you know. I should be a CEO somewhere of some Fortune 500 company with the vision that I have, you know, and I'm not. I'm a struggling 50-year-old man trying to build a nonprofit that hardly gets funded. So it's just knowing that, you know, life could have went in so many different ways, but in the end, it's all on God. There's a plan, you know, and that's the whole meaning behind stick to the script. Just stick to the script. Stick to the script that you've been writing. Keep to it. Keep true to yourself. Keep true to who you are, and all will be revealed to you. So with that, thank you guys once again. I love you guys, man. I love you guys sincerely. And if you haven't heard it in a while, you can know that you can always hear it here on the Thomas FreeMe Show. I love you as my brother, as my sister. And I pray that everybody is safe and healthy and that your bellies are full, So keep it pushing, pimping, no matter how hard it is, no matter what situation you're in. Just keep doing the right thing. Keep your head up. Keep the faith. And everything will work out the way that it's supposed to. So, again, thank you for tuning in. I love you guys. Enjoy Miss Penney Peirce, man. This is a phenomenal show, man. It's crazy, this numerology thing, man. It's just nuts. It's nuts. It's crazy. So enjoy.
So if you look at your chart, the structure of this thing has basically a tic-tac-toe board, but it has 3 rows of numbers and then 4 columns. So the 2 middle sections, each one is separate. So you have 4 different periods of the life, mainly. And then the age ranges for each cycle is in that little skinny row. So your first cycle goes up till age 34, till the end of that age. And at age 35, you start the next one, and at 44, and at 53, you will start the next one. So, and then everything's in 9-year increments. It's different from astrology because that's 12 and this is 9. So, and then the birth date numbers add up to the life number. You may have known that, played around with it at all. If you add up all the numbers in a row and then add up the sum of those numbers in a row, you finally get, in your case, an 11, which is then a 2. All right. And that's like being what are you, a Virgo?
Right.
But you're a Virgo and an 11. All right. So the 11-2 is a lot more like Libra, actually. 2s are the back and forth, the bridging, the making connections between things. But I'll tell you about each thing. But to me, each of the numbers is a frequency, right? It's a kind of consciousness and a kind of energy, particular kind of energy. And so the numbers you have in the top row, which is basically your birth date numbers, represent the internal motivations and the core as essential stuff, the inside stuff. That motivation or urge then comes out through the middle row. So the middle row is about form and expression. So it's kind of like internal, external. And they go together, obviously. And they do something when they combine. Because each number, I like to think of it like a circle with 1 through 9 in a circle, and it's a process of growth. And each next number is the next natural step after the one before it. It makes logical sense when you start working with it. And so a certain thing happens when you have the focus of that number on you. And so your first cycle has 8, 7, and 0 at the bottom. The bottom row is about issues that you're trying to integrate and understand, not necessarily negative, but it's typical in that sort of key balancing role that you might do too much of a thing and then not enough of it, and learn about it by experimenting with it. But it often is a skill that comes in because you need to work with it. So, and then we look for patterns too, because you have 2 8s and 3 4s in your chart. And these are the physical numbers, the earthy physical numbers. 4, is the square or the cross, time, space, matter, form, structure, the body. And 8 is the higher, more sophisticated level of that, more collective in nature, and often has to do with the structuring of non-physical stuff like ideas. So it's the organizer, the good with strategy, planning, systems, projects, and very good in business, often. Where 4 is the laborer, shirt sleeves rolled up, hands in the mud. 8 is the executive, more director, who delegates things to others, but keeps the overall structure together. And I think, let me not get too far into that, but I just wanted to say the 4s and 8s are very prominent in your chart. So it makes you learn things through the body and through, banging your head on something, to get a message or something. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But the 11 too is kind of an overarching sort of umbrella for the life lesson. 2s are about wanting connection with other people, relationships, and 2s are in the physical world. So they like a person with a body over there, that you can connect with.
Right.
And they often work as teachers, counselors, lawyers, even, working with contracts, agreements, balancing things, and teaching, where you taking from one realm and giving to another realm. But the 11 is the spiritual version of the 2. So it has to do with the linking of you from the physical to the non-physical. So it often has a very strong intuition, a lot of sense of connection to the non-physical realms, where you would get revelation and inspiration and higher insight, which then you bring kind of down in frequency and then want to give it out to everybody, with the 2. So where the 2 is a teacher, the 11 is a spiritual teacher or a minister or something like that. And it's where 2s are very relational oriented. The 11 is more, it wants a soulmate, doesn't want just ordinary people. It wants somebody on your wavelength that you can really connect with. And so often it will preclude you having relationships for a while that work, because it's idealistic. But the good thing about 2s is they typically will have patience for other people. They'll, say, okay, on the other hand, and they're seeking harmony a lot. When it gets out of balance, like you may have had in your early life, where you get frustrated because things aren't fixable or aren't working, and then you can get really upset and angry, and then it's polarity. As you get more high frequency, it turns into more like the figure 8, where things are integrating, and then you see yourself in the other, and then you start going toward unity. So 2 is, I would just say it's highly sensitive, empathic, and intuitive, reads other people very well, that kind of thing. So that's with you. That's a big skill that you've got. Now, the 8s, as I said, it's a very competent, powerful number, because if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you're building up, knowledge and experience and everything, you get to number 8, and it's ta-da, and everything lands, it materializes in its final form. So it's very powerful because it has that natural instinct to get the stuff from the higher realms and make it happen in the world. And so they're very good at things like getting visions and making them into reality and that kind of stuff. Management consultants have this a lot, where they can go in and say, well, this organization isn't working because it's not according to the universal principles. Because metaphysically, 8 is the number where you start to really, truly get the universal laws. It's where you go, I see how things work. These are principles that are about spirit and natural harmony, about the way things actually work. And when you live accordingly, things work. If you go against it, it doesn't work. And so if you take that and drop it into the physical world, it becomes stuff like business and, government even, and large superstructures like the church would be an 8, things like that. But when you grow up with it, I have it too, because I'm an August kid also. When you grow up with it, you have this power, or this strong sense of wanting to make things happen. And often your family can be like that or the opposite of that. I had a father who was a CEO of a company, but you can have the opposite thing too, where you want it, it more than your family does. And it can come across as maybe too much structure or strictness or rules that you will rebel against. But since you have it for 52 years in a row, it's a big deal.
Well, I mean, that it just explains a lot of, in my life as well. Of course, pretty
Yeah.
much my life timeline of
Mm-hmm.
just that entrepreneurial mindset
Mm-hmm.
from just from a young age, and I didn't know how to manage that. I didn't know what to do with that, and I created a criminal enterprise, albeit it was still an enterprise,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Right.
But this is
Yeah,
fascinating.
it is. And then, so that's your motive, see, but the 7 is the way you would express it. And this is a very difficult number to have in the childhood early cycle, because 7 is about, it's the point on the cycle where you've been going along and doing all this stuff and getting all this stuff. And then suddenly at number 7, you go, wait a minute, am I on purpose? Is this the truth? Is this what I should be doing?
Mm,
Because 7 is the alignment of the personality and the soul, the physical material world and the non-physical. It's so things like yoga are interesting for 7 sometimes, there's alignment, or ritual and ceremony can be interesting for it. But typically, it has this innate sensitivity to lies and dishonesty and things that are not correct. That down deep, this guy is not, all what he seems. Something's wrong with this picture. And you can
that's
smell a
me.
lie a mile away. And it makes you in your inner self very perfectionistic, where you
Hmm.
just know how it needs to be. And when you find that you're around a lot of people who don't care or who do it wrong or who are just blatantly not in alignment, it can be really upsetting for you. So it can pertain a little bit to rebelling against situations you find yourself in that don't fit your ideals. So I don't know if that was your early family life, but I could see you going for a criminal enterprise because it was maybe a path of least resistance and you didn't have to fall into this mold that, you didn't like because it wasn't really true.
Right. I mean, that's it on the head. Is it allowed me the freedom of expression of myself because I was generating my own money. I didn't have to answer to any of society's rules or anything of that nature, and it just allowed me to be that free expressive self.
Right. So this is interesting because 7s are actually very brilliant. They have a very great ability to take abstract concepts and bring it down to earth and then detail it. It's like, oh gosh, metaphysics is a big 7 thing, but then physics and science is the earthly version of that. So they like both. Or mathematics, you might have the, Melchizedek's, Merkaba body and grids and all that stuff, sacred geometry, and then on earth accounting or something.
Right.
So and or law is a 7. Lawyers often have 7s because they have a sense of universal law, and then they like to bring that into physical human law to try to balance the worlds. So it's like that with a lot of things. And it has a dual nature of that abstract thinking and then this detailed, precise, almost perfectionistic thinking down on earth. It is always checking, I would say, like, what is that? Is that an alignment? Is that good? Is that right? Is that, and then in order to process a lot of the things that you pick up energetically, you need space. 7s tend to be they need a sanctuary space, or they need to retreat and get away because they need to think. So they analyze, they think, they're very logical. They do deep level, detailed work, for instance. Like doctors have sevens a lot because they have to memorize all this knowledge, about healing. So analytical stuff, also anything that's like a laser that goes straight through to the core of whatever's true. So like forensics is this, like profilers would be. I've often thought I have sevens too. I would love to be a profiler, and get down deep into the whatever's going on.
It's
And
all I do all day long is profile people. It drives everybody around me nuts. You know, it's funny because you're labeling me to a T, you know.
yeah,
And what I mean, but you
it's the
you
underpinnings too, and the way they express, which I find is very fascinating. I've just found a lot of understanding about how the numbers will work together and what their actual translation is into this world, and it's just amazing to me. But
well, it's like you're describing. I mean, one of the biggest things that I think makes me so relatable to so many people in my line of work now as the nonprofit founder out in the community dealing with addiction and homelessness is the ability of me to break things down, like complex things, to where they can understand it. One of the biggest quotes that I get from people all the time is that I just have this innate ability to just bring understanding to people. Like I can just describe and break things down that the simplest
yeah,
of minds can get,
yep,
and
yep,
you just detailed that out for me.
right. Because the seven is that the realization of truth, basically. And
Mm,
and the alignment creates truth. When you become your soul, you get truth. And you know this deep, like viscerally, even if you're a little kid, like you had it there, and you would have been noticing everybody around you and saying, well, they don't get it, or they don't get it, or this isn't quite right. And then it's frustrating. But in an evolved kind of pattern, often I find this, especially later on in life when you have it when you're older, it can be about financial planning, stockbrokers. 8 is money, and 7 is the analytical skill, the organizational skill, and the analytical skill going together to talk about finances and money and organizations or CEOs and things like that will have this pattern. Other people will not understand you because you don't show up with everything on the surface. Sevens are private.
mhm.
They hold their cards close to the vest, and they are, like I said, they often withdraw in order to take a minute to think things through, to get clarity, to read about it, to, focus on it, meditate on it. And then, aha, that's what it was, and then you answer your own question. And now you're relieved because now you've found the truth and you can relax and move on. But it's
Absolutely.
constant.
Constant,
Constant.
24/7 about everything. Everything. And I cannot find, like you just said, I cannot find resolve within myself until my brain processes it and understands.
Right.
That's why the smallest little lie, if you're sitting here telling me a story, I'm processing every word that you're saying. And if
Mhm.
it's not adding up in my head, I'm going to start asking a million questions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just how I am.
Right. Well, people will think that you don't like them or something, like they'll think, oh, he's aloof, he doesn't care, he's, in his own
Or I'm
world,
judging them. That's
or
the biggest
judging
thing.
them.
I'm judging them,
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing that I had to get Candy to understand, is that when she's doing things, my questioning her isn't judging how she's doing it, but it's my inquisitive mind
Yeah.
wanting to know why you're doing it that way when I would do it a different way,
Uh-huh.
because your way might be better than my way. It's
Yeah.
just me asking questions, and because that's just how my mind works. So
Right.
it took her a
Yeah.
minute to overcome that, to understand. that I'm just a highly inquisitive individual.
Well, you're open-minded, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole thing, which is the zero, the bottom. The zero is the counterbalance point to this pattern, is not one of the actual digits. It's the number that's beyond the physical. The zero, I always think of it as kind of like the unknown, but also it's sort of like infinity. Because what it'll do for you is you'll get an answer and you'll get, oh, that's it. And then you go, wait a minute, there's more. There's another layer. So don't get all locked into things, because stay loose and stay open, because you got to keep learning. So it'll kind of goose you every time you get egotistical or too stuck in one way of doing something, which is very good for your spiritual growth.
Mm.
But you can be overwhelmed too by the hugeness of everything. Sometimes the zero is like, oh, there it all is. Ah, you know. But so it is a fairly sophisticated and very strong first phase, although the seven will cause you to not appear that way to others, because you're waiting, kind of you're aligning, you're checking, yeah.
Which is another comment that I get from a lot of people, is that I'm very confusing, right?
Oh,
I'm very confusing, I'm very conflicting, and that
mm,
leads to what you just explained.
yeah. Yeah, because people expect um, other people to be closed-minded and to be
Hmm.
judgmental, and especially if you were in prison and all this, then they expect you to have remnants of all that, whatever that meant to them,
Right.
right? Not to actually look at what you actually are.
Right.
So sevens often are on a spiritual path very early in life because they've already connected with a lot of this knowledge, and I think it is a um, what would you call it? A conduit for a lot of your past life information, a resonance point. It creates resonance between this life and lives where you've had a lot of truth and wisdom and knowledge and spiritual truth and connection and stuff. And you get it either in big waves or bit by bit. But you have the echo of it always in there, that you want it. You want it back. You're going to
Hmm.
reground it. And so it's often misunderstood. Um,
Yes.
so anyway, that's your first phase, and you have 9-year increments of that. It's subcycles. At age 8, 17, and 26, you have the 1 year of a new 9-year cycle. So new individuation point at those ages. So this works in 9-year cycles, and you're in the 7th year of a 9-year cycle this year, down by when it says personal years down here at 2025 is a 7-year. So that means
Oh,
this
okay.
year has the function of the 7 for you, which is let's get aligned and tell the truth and, you know, be
Huh.
do what I'm here to do, really get rid of all the lies and
Right.
yeah.
That's absolutely correct. And
And
even as
study. Sevens are often they go to a school for advanced degrees, they're PhDs and all this kind of thing. Very brilliant. And so you may find yourself wanting to go dive deep into some kind of study or self-study or reading or something that fascinates you this year. And it's very good for behind the scenes work where you plan and you get organized and you lay out the blueprint for something like that. Sevens are really good for that.
Hmm.
So anyway, yeah, you can look at around those ages because often there's a shift around a 2-year period before it, a year and before and after of that time where you're starting to go into something new. All right, then at 35, you have different numbers. So here comes the 8 with a 3 and a 4. So the 3 is the way you're expressing the 8 now instead of expressing it through the 7. So that higher power now wants to come out. The 3 is about creativity, self-expression, the easy flow like the trine within the personality. So body, mind, and spirit all working together, evenly used. and you start to feel really good and relaxed and cheerful and open up more, and you feel like overflowing out into the world with your messages and ideas and creations and artwork or whatever you're doing. Threes are very often artists, and they often overflow through the voice.
Mhm.
So talking more, coming out of the shell, coming out of hiding, getting out in the public, starting to popularize ideas, share more. So threes are great teachers, but they're also entertainers. You know, they're funny. They can be very charming and funny, and they like being on stage. They like having that, getting the messages
Spotlight.
out. Yeah. And so your work, which is the 8, may become much more like the 3 as the outer form. So here you've got your podcast, you know, got media and all kinds of things like that, and writing, and I don't know what all the groups you're doing too. But
Well, it was just the last podcast I put out was the one that you and I did, and I believe that was back from September. So I'm
mhm,
just now getting my podcast back up. I'm going to start producing shows again.
yeah.
Because it's all falling in line with exactly what you're saying through this numerology chart.
Well, notice you have 2 3s in the middle row. At 53, it comes back again.
Hmm.
So you, from 35 to 43, you had it as the initial urge, let's say, and a big shifting because 7 is internal and 3 is external. But three's shadow side, I think, has to do with maybe karma of having spoken truth to power and gotten whacked for it or something, you know, in the past. And then you go, oh, I better be careful how I say this, you know, and so you're monitoring yourself somewhat.
Well,
And it
that
can,
35 to 43, I was released from prison at age 40.
okay, okay, all right. Well, that gives, yeah, 3 is very much about freedom and self-expression and authentic self-expression. And it's just natural. It's not formal at all. It's very natural expression, and it's likable typically, you know, it's easy go. So that's coming in. And then the 4 at the bottom being half of 8. 4 is, like I said, it's the square or the cross, time, space, matter. It's your physical body. It's Taurus, you know. 8 is more like Capricorn, maybe. 7 is more like Virgo, Scorpio, kind of.
Mm.
And 3, I don't know exactly what it's like, but maybe Leo a little bit or something. But the 4, as an undercurrent, is speaking to you about, make this real. Get in your body all the way. You know, don't resist things. Go with it and materialize, bring things in to form. And don't resist form. Don't try to get out and fly away. Come in and go through the karma tunnel, you know, and out the other end. And you find out, as you really embody the physical world, it's not solid, right? It's made of energy and it obeys
Right.
your thought. And it's like fun. Now we can create, you know. So when you put 3 and 4 together, it's very creative. It's like, oh, I can make that happen. I can just think about it and it happens. And it
And
makes
that's
the
how I
whole
feel.
thing, it just makes this thing of being here a joy, you know. So
Absolutely.
so getting the word out and especially popularizing. 3s are so likable often and good speakers that people, they like you. They like what you're saying. They'll resonate to it pretty easily. So it can be shy, it can be silent and not talk, or it can talk a lot, you know, it can be both ways. So that was that 9-year period. Then at 44, you get a really powerful period here. So 44 until 52, where you are now, is the 1 with the 8. And 1 is like Aries. It is the first phase of growth, just like Aries is the first sign, where you go, well, here I am. I just got here out of the void and I'm a particle now. But what is that? I'm an individual. What is that? What am I supposed to do with that? How does it work? And so there's a very strong drive to define your personal self, to be somebody, to initiate and originate things that are unique. And so in the early phases of having a one, there often are self-doubts where it's like, you know, it's highly magnetic because it's like all the energy is being sucked into the particle, right? You know, and it draws attention. And so there's a sensitivity to getting the wrong kind of attention.
Mm-hmm.
So often then the one will cause you to think, I better get like credentials or something that makes me seem official and good and credible, you know, and so you'll hang back sometimes until you work to get this. And while you're hanging back and not taking up your full space, other people will act like dominators around you. And it's very common with ones to have victim dominator patterns where you'll get these really narcissistic, bossy people,
Mm.
you know, just you know, bullies and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
where you have to come into yourself and step forward into yourself and maybe have an act of power at some point and say, just leave me alone. This is my life. Back off. You know, like you're yourself. You know, there's no limits on you and none on me either. And so, and then you firm up. Not that you hadn't been before, but the one is really the master of this act of becoming fully realizing who you are. Um, and then you start to get good at everything. You start to get good at things. Then other people will act like victims around you and act like,
Amen.
well, why do you get to do that? You think you're so special. You know, why don't you ask our opinion? You know, you're selfish, blah, blah, blah. You know, and so pretty soon you just balance it all out and you say, everybody's unique. You don't have to compete. You know, we need each other, all the similarities we have as individuals. And so authenticity and honesty become very important. And ones, they have a very narrow point of view. They see what's right here in front of their face and go, whoa, look at that idea. And then they go leaping in, you know, and then jump and go forward. And then in 10 minutes, they're bored with that because another new thing has popped up. Oh,
That's
let's
right.
go to this one
Butterflies.
now. And so it's impulsive and impatient, but it's motivated, really motivated to go forward because there are 8 more phases of growth ahead, you know, and I just got here. It's all instinctive.
Mm-hmm.
I can't
And
stop. I'll
that's
fall backwards.
and that's where you get your best work out of me is within the first that first burst, you know,
Mm,
because when you present an idea to me, a business or anything of that nature, that burst of excitement and energy, my vision is just off the charts, you
mhm,
know. And then, like you say, I'll get bored with that, and then I'll move on to something else,
right.
you know. But I've left this person with some visions for their business or whatever it is that
That's
they
it.
would have never saw anywhere else.
And that's a total thing with ones. If they get the first thoughts, they
Hmm.
get boom, and it's original and usually quite accurate and visionary and all that. And then, yeah, then they move on and the next thing captures the attention.
Yep.
They often don't finish things for the same reason, is
Nope.
that, you know, yeah, but you have all the 4s and 8s, so they finish things because they want beginning, middle, end, liminal space, you know, do the whole cycle, they understand.
and
So,
and that is where I have found my comfort and sanity is knowing that I have a million projects going on, but knowing that I'll always go back to each one and touch one, even if it's for 10 or 15 minutes each day. But
yeah.
it's just crazy. This is nuts how this is defining me, not only me, but what I've been going through with Coming Home Coalition. You know,
Mm,
it's
mm,
the one, everything that you described about that is Coming Home Coalition's journey. My opening doors, allowing
right.
people to come in, them taking over, taking my ideas and implementing into theirs, me shutting everything down and starting all from scratch again,
Mhm.
because I have the confidence of knowing that I'm the engine to this train.
Yeah.
And as soon as I see that another engine tries to muscle its way on my train, I eliminate it. And I mean,
Yeah.
this is
Well,
explained it to the T, man.
well, and it's more that one is, if you really go to the heart of one, it's about soul,
Hmm.
the authentic self. But it can be very sensitive to ego. So a lot of those other people who are trying to take over your thing, they're not doing it for the same motive of truth that you are. And you feel
Right.
that falseness, and then this will not work. This is not the vibe of this place. And you feel that's the 7 again, being out of alignment. But the 1 is like a paramedic or something, they can handle emergencies. They get up and go boom, right away. And they are not tolerant. The 2s are tolerant, but 1s are not, because it has to be aligned right in order for you to take the next step, or otherwise
That's
you're
right.
all combobulated. So 1s can be just amazingly inventive and, like you're saying, all these things. But when it's with an 8, they pair up. So 8 and 1 is the entrepreneur. What am I capable of materializing in the world? And I want to be my own boss, and I don't want to work for other people. And I want to be a leader. That's a 1, because 1s get out ahead of people. Plus they have the vision to do it as well, and they have the
That's right.
confidence to do it as well.
Yeah, we're not
So
waiting on nobody. We're just getting in and doing it.
so that is a theme they often work with, to instill leadership in other people. That could be something coming for you if you haven't done it yet. So leadership, authenticity, originality, innovation, motivation. Motivational speakers have this a lot. So, but 8 and 1 is like, I had this in my first cycle. So it's like, I'm going to do it, make it happen under my own steam, and don't tell me what to do, kind of thing.
Right.
Now,
Well,
the
I needed that
4,
one. I needed that one to land on the 0 to 35.
well, you had it in you all along anyway. These are all in you all the time. They're like archetypal patterns. But when you're right on them, they're kind of in your face a little more.
Got it.
Yeah. So, and 1 and 4 is similar to 1 and 8, but 1 and 4 is more like a workaholic, or I'm going to build this, with my own muscle, or I'm going to train for this marathon, and I'm going to, build up my body, or, it's weightlifters, bodybuilders,
Yeah, that's not me.
those other kinds of things, anything with the physical strength and the physical, tangible, tactile um, doing of something like
I have I have no problem diving in. I'll be the first one to get in and roll my sleeves up and work. But like you said, from a leadership aspect, not
Mhm.
because it's what I want to do, but it's because I'll do it to show the next person how it needs to be done.
Yeah, yeah. Now 4s also are very good with real estate, land, buildings, square things. They're very good with art forms that are three-dimensional, for instance, working with your hands in any way. So it's good to have it in that bottom row, because it's very grounding. People will believe you because they'll feel the trust of your body. They'll feel you as being real. So that's what you're still in, and still powering ahead here with all of this. Um, And then at 53, you have 4-3-4. So now you're combining back to the second phase, the 3 and 4, but now at a much higher level on the spiral. So again, creativity, self-expression, ideas, communications, and the grounding of that, which also 3 and 4 can be designers. Like 3 makes the creation, but 4 wants it to be practical and useful,
Right.
structural. Yeah.
Always.
So now 2 4s at the same time for the rest of your life. And every 9 years, it will deepen and deepen. The other numbers are all integrated into you. And so you pull on them whatever way you want. They're all there. And these are just specific issues that you've chosen to kind of focus on in the life. It's not all there is, but it's kind of a certain focus for you as a way of sequencing yourself into lessons that you needed. So the 4 and 3 together are really well balanced. I have it also in my last cycle of the writing and speaking. Threes can be on stage, they can be singers, they can be comedians, they can be actors, performers, any, and the voice in any form. So it's too much 4 and you get heavy and serious, it's got to be done just this way. The rules are. And the 3 says, okay, lighten up. you know, we'll get things done.
It's amazing that you put the 3 in that context, because now I'm looking at the age between 35 and 43. And remember when I said I had got out of prison when I was at 40 years
Yeah.
old, and within the first 3 years I was doing film. I was on
Uh-huh.
Ozarks the second season. I did, a stage play. I've done,
Oh, wow.
you know what I mean? So
Huh.
it's you're
Yeah.
this is just mind-boggling to me.
Mhm. It's so cool.
It
Yeah.
is.
So all of this will meld together, but you can see there are themes. You've got the 3s, sort of the 7 and 1 are a little bit alike, and the 8s and 4s are really a lot alike. So you are very, very, very grounded and serve as a leader that's very trustworthy because you're in the truth, you're grounded, you have leadership, organizational ability, and you're lighthearted,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's like if you're lecturing people and telling them, they're not going to listen to you. But if you're more natural about it, they'll feel so comfortable that they'll take it on, you know.
I'm working on that balance right now, because I do
Yeah.
get a lot from a lot of different people about my ability to lecture,
Mhm.
and
Right.
people feel lectured to
Yeah.
when, I speak, or however. And so it's really trying to find that happy balance, because I don't want them to feel lectured, but I also want them to understand what the definition of a lecture is, because that's what I'm doing in that moment, is educating.
Hmm. So I would say do intersperse it with some self-deprecating thing or some detail about yourself that's funny, that or just in the middle of a thing where you realize the power is getting out there too strong, just like stop and do something goofy or whatever. Just modulate the vibe because they're feeling a force coming toward. I do this too. I mean, double Leo. I get um,
Hmm. Hmm.
I can get that way, but I'm trying more and more just to have a good time while I'm talking,
Right.
right? And just kind of entertain myself. And then they don't react the same way. Or give a lot of examples of other people who've done things that you can deflect energy away from yourself
Got it.
also. That helps, I find. So anyway, this last year was the 6th year of the cycle. And 6 is a little bit like the sign Cancer in astrology. It's often about home, family, health issues, um, the idea of nurturing, of having groups of people around you that feel like family, or issues with your actual family, health issues, whatever. You want to kind of gather together with people and nest. Six is the point after all this stimulation in the previous cycle that you say, just enough already. I need to go home and take a nap. I need to go digest the big dinner. Let's see what's really real and let's transmute this into actual, food into my body and let's see what's real.
Right.
Um, and so it's highly like the 2, it's very sensitive and empathic to what's around you. And that can be the people, your groups, your organization, your home, your room, the spaces you occupy. You want the space around you to feel the way you like to feel on the inside, balanced and harmonious and beautiful, or have a lot of light or something. And if you're in an environment that's ugly or dark or whatever, chaotic, you can't function.
Can't function.
So
And
you
for
have to
me,
fix it.
the, right. And how I try to do that is provide comfort in every environment that I'm in. It's paramount for me to provide comfort no matter
Mm.
what room I'm in, because I know that that is where honesty lies at, is within
Yeah,
comfort.
true.
People lie when they're uncomfortable, you know, so
That's so true.
it's just getting people to be comfortable in any manner, because
Yeah,
that's where the honesty lies at.
right. Because the stress is out then, and it allows harmony to, without even thinking about trying to make harmony happen, kind of deep comfort just
It
lets
just
you go
flows.
back into it. You just go back in.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's really a good point. Yeah, so 6 years usually pretty harmonious, although you can have upsets with family and you can have groups, like you said, your organization that feels like family going cuckoo on you or something. You may want to work with diet and food. Food's a big deal for sixes. Cooking, growing food, giving food away, gardening, nature, important, very important in a 6 year to get out in nature. And so anything that allows you to come into greater integration and harmony. And it's almost like this is the year where the the non-physical world and the physical world, you start to see there exist simultaneously together. They're not
Yes.
separate.
No.
Spirit's in matter, it's right here. And so you don't have to go anywhere or be different to be yourself. You're already it. And it's a big relief, you know.
Hmm.
And it's the foreshadowing of the seven where you say, okay, I've got a lot of information, but now am I on purpose? Let me like fix all the little, misalignments now and perfect this. And then the eight comes along and says, okay, great. Now you've downloaded more of your spiritual purpose or whatever. Let's materialize this. And then the nine, which you don't have in your chart, but it comes as the last stage, is a little like Pisces, where you go, well, I did it. I finished that cycle at number 8, and I have the results. And let me take inventory and take stock. Well, it was a good job, and I learned a lot. And relax, open up, clean out your closets, let go of old things that aren't true, and open space so that you can get new visions coming in.
That's
So
my
it's often,
reflection at the end of the day.
yeah. And of course, let's see, this year, February is a 9-month coming up here real soon. I will get into that in a minute, but yeah, the months have themes, just like the year. So yeah, at the end of any cycle, which will be, for you, the 9th year will be 2027, finishing up this cycle you're in now. But often you're bored or you're like, so what else is there? But it's
I
important
have to
to,
be. I have to be constantly stimulated.
yeah. But in a 9, you have to go into liminal space, which is the void or the rest place where you're out of the old, but you're not quite into the new, but you can kind of see the new, but you can't make it happen. But what you do is you have your communion with all the non-physical beings. It's kind of the divine feminine energy where you don't use willpower to punch something through or make it happen. You just sit there and go, hi, everybody. I think I'd like to, make this or do this. And they go, okay, we'll help you. And things fall together magically. It's miraculous time,
Yeah.
not a pushy time. And so your left brain will think, well, nothing's happening. But actually, a lot is happening in the non-physical realms that are patterning and getting set up for the one that comes next. And then things start to materialize step by step. It's
I
very
mean,
logical.
Miss Penny, this is nuts, you know, and it is, it really is, because I just had this conversation with Candy, and a lot of my, for the past 2 months, I have been very anxious, almost slightly depressed because of the stagnicity in Coming
Mhm.
Home Coalition just in my life, that it just, I felt stagnant. I felt like I wasn't getting anything done.
Right.
And we just had this conversation 2 days ago. This is nuts. And I told her around March or April, I'm going to start to see changes in things.
True. Look at March is your 1 month.
I mean, I'm blown away. I really honestly am.
Yeah. Well, it does make sense, and there's certainly a lot of ways to interpret the number combinations, but I've seen so many clients, like, I bet I've done 10,000 of these charts now, and I've learned so much about the vibrations of the numbers and stuff. You'll feel the future cycle early in the life, and it almost like it's drawing you toward it, because it's going to be more like the life work somehow. And 4 is prison, 4 is the box. You can feel very restricted. Like if you had it in your first cycle, you would have had a family that was like restricted you terribly. But
Hmm.
when you get more mature, then you use it for creativity, and you don't get trapped by it by resisting it. If you resist it, it closes in on you. If you relax with it, it creates with you. It's a tricky thing. But anyway, yeah. So I would say, your impact on others is really to ground them and to help guide them into the truth and to encourage them and inspire them about their own worth and power. Yeah, and create all these things and all this information to go out in the world. So when we look at the months, I circled 1, 4, and 8 in the years because those are catalytic points within the year. So like between 9 and 1 is like boom, it starts happening.
Right.
Between 4 and 5, or between 3 and 4, for instance, 3 is like, oh, we're out there getting all these ideas and isn't this fun? And then 4 is like, boom, it brings it down and like
Hmm.
makes it happen. And the same between the 7 and 8. 7 is I'm aligning, I'm getting everything perfected. And the 8 is, okay, here's the final form. So you often have almost like sometimes a dramatic shifts between those two numbers, like the end of something and a new beginning of another. Um, so you can watch, and you can back this grid up backwards. Like, so 2023 was a 5-year for you, which is freedom, change, movement, variety, and stimulation and craziness, kind of lots of action. And then the 6 comes along and said, let's digest the big dinner, let's like settle down. But so yeah, 1 through 9, you can back things up and see when some event happened and what number it was. And you can kind of say, oh, that was a 1 for me, or that was a whatever. That was what, maybe it was a 7. Now that's a lesson there for you or something. I find it amazing. So anyway, so your first quarter this year is 891. And backing up, notice November and December was 89 last year. And then it goes 8, 9 again, the beginning of this year, and then a 1 in March. So you have 8, 9, 8, 9, 1 over the winter months. So 8 manifesting something, final form, and then 9 letting go and going out and getting visions and repatterning, and then you get another 8 right away in January.
Hmm.
Oh, let's bring down the stuff. Blah, blah, blah. And then wait a minute, it's not finished. Let's go out and get in February. Let's go get more of the big thing. And then in the 1 in March is where it all starts to come in.
Oh
Since
Lord.
you've been doing it incrementally, it's the time where things want to move forward. So you were talking about getting married in February.
Yeah, we'll be getting married the week after Valentine's.
Okay. Well, it's
Yep.
a 9-month for you. So for you, for Candy, it's much more the right month. For you, it's like whatever. It's sort of, it's more you'll feel things starting in March. Everything, the marriage, everything will be really getting going. You'll feel like you're just kind of, yeah, we got married and now it's real. And you were talking about your dad being sick, I think, didn't you say?
Yes, ma'am. So he was
Yeah,
diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic
pancreatic.
cancer, and
Right.
we got that diagnosis in the beginning of January.
Yeah.
And he's went through one round of a light chemo concoction. He actually goes for his second round tomorrow, but he's
Well,
progressively gaining more and more pain.
he's going to go really soon, I think. And, the nine in a 7 year of a 9 and a 9 month for you, seven's often where people go anyway, because they're aligning with spirit. Nine's often the letting go of the body. So, I mean, I would say he's going to go in February sometime, but maybe not because the one is then catalytic and it can bring it in. So between February and March, I that's what I've seen before. Now, it's not saying how strong he is or his will to stay, uh,
Right.
but for just keep that in mind. But his leaving is going to be an alignment for you with a higher truth because it's in your 7 year. And so sometimes when people are born, like a parent has a child and it's in that month of that year for them, the kid will be that symbolic of that time. They will serve that function. And when people die in a certain month and year for you, it will serve a function for you. If it's a 7 and 9, it'll be something really lofty, like you're really going to get a big connection with spirit, or the one is going to come in really strong into your personal self. Like you're going to know a lot about things, but it's powerful for you. And for Candy, February is a 2 month for her, which is marriage, partnership. Yeah. So so it's really right for her, and it's something for you. I can't tell exactly, but it's not exactly the thing you would expect. I don't know if that matches with any feelings you've had about your dad or anything.
Well, the purpose of the February wedding is really revolves around my father.
Yeah.
Before he did fall ill, he had asked us if we were going to get married before he traveled on. My father's 86. He's lived a full life.
Oh, mhm.
Got a pacemaker with a defibrillator.
Uh-huh.
Been through quite a lot. And so he had just posed this question, and we told him, that we planned on being married by the end of the year, probably, and so on. This was last year,
Mhm.
and then when we got this diagnosis, we just chose, like you said, I really feel the same way, between those months, and I just felt the urgency to get this done.
Yeah.
Why he's still healthy enough to enjoy it,
Mhm.
and she had asked my father if he would give her away, and he said yes. So
Well,
that
you
that
might want to make it more the beginning of the month, toward the beginning of the month if you can. I
the
don't know.
date,
That's just a
yeah,
thought.
the date, we're still in limbo about it. We initially picked Valentine's, but then we didn't want our anniversary to be tied in with Valentine's. You know
Right,
what I
right,
mean? So
right.
that's what made us push it back a week, but we'll figure out and see.
President's Day.
Yeah.
I
That'd
don't
be a
know.
great one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But
February 11th, that's 2/2.
2-2,
Well, 11 is a 2, February is a 2.
2. Yeah,
Could
possibly.
be interesting.
So we may have to rework that, and in the end it's just, again, uh allowing life just to be life, and to let it flow like water.
Mhm.
And if it's meant to be, it will happen.
So,
This has been awesome, Miss Penny, and I mean, I I giggle, and I'm lost for words at times, because this is so on point. And there's not many things in my life that has described me like this just has.
yeah. And you can see deeper into reasons why you would do it a certain way. If you look deeper into the pattern, you can say, okay, I'll do this first, and then I'll get going on this, and then I'll come back to this, and then I'll really put them all together. And, there's a, there's a method in the madness, and it makes sense. Everything makes incredible sense when you go in and really look at how we engineer our life flow, along with all the beings who join with us to help each other out. It's amazing.
It really is, and especially for me personally, because again, I'm a visual person. I have to see it laid out in front of me so that I can process it and envision things, and this has done that, because now I'm looking at it like you said, and not only that, but now I can strategize, because I can see that my February month is a 9, and I can
Yeah.
kind of strategize for that coming up.
hmm Yeah. And look at January is an 8. So this is a really time for organizing and getting clear and jumping into the year right away. It's not like stalling and waiting for the year to start. It's like boom, like right off.
Which is what I've been doing, and I've been driving Candy crazy, because I'm telling her, like, it's January, like, what are we waiting on? Let's, it's like I'm
Well,
driving people nuts. There's no
she's in
question.
she's in the 9th year of a 9-year cycle this year. So everything for her is about cleaning up, tidying up, completing things that were her old pattern, and letting go and having faith and trust and stuff. But January is a 1 month for her and an 8 month for you. So those two numbers are really compatible, right? They're like, let's go, let's go. But she's
That's
in a
awesome.
9 year, so she's a little bit softer and not wanting to push ahead, but January will instigate and catalyze. Ones are catalysts often.
So I'm gonna have to deal with her in 2026 then.
She'll be in her 1 year then.
Yeah.
But you'll be in your 8.
Right.
You're always going to be similar like that. And then um, this year, she's in a 9 year and you're in a 7, which are the two numbers that kind of go together in terms of spiritual connection.
So everything that we're doing is right then.
I think you're on schedule and very aligned. Even though your charts look really different, I think they're very complementary. And she is a 3, and you have a bunch of 3s. And so she's very heavy on 3 as well. So it's an overlap for you.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
and one of the things that she said, you know, about what she loves the most is that I complete her, and she
Mhm.
completes me.
Well,
I'm
that would
everything that
be
she's not, and
right.
she's everything that I'm not. And according to these numbers, that fits.
That's true. Yeah. And yet there's also a core vibration that's similar, but the outer trappings are things that are more fitting like a puzzle in and balancing out. Um, yeah. Plus, she's older than you are.
Yep, by 1 year. That's awesome. It's
Yeah.
it's just it's just it's how like, how does this work? How do just numbers
Yeah.
dictate your personality, dictate what you're gonna do, dictate what you've done?
And this is even abbreviated form of what they did back in the, ancient days in the Middle East, where this stuff originated, like Chaldea and, Nineveh or wherever those places were. Um, but it's frequencies. It
It's
comes right down
frequency.
to it. It's frequencies. And when different frequencies combine and you get different resonances, then consciousness flows on those resonances. And then maybe that affects your inner blueprint, and then that's the energy body or the etheric body. And then that affects how things materialize. And it works with the shadow side and the sunny side of an
Hmm.
issue. And it's not bad or good, because you can learn the same lessons by going to prison or by starting a corporation.
Right.
What did you do in prison? Were you really spiritual? Were you talking about ideas and stuff then? Were you focusing on that kind of stuff when you were
Um,
there?
uh, yes, but that came in the end. I
Uh-huh.
had to go through that transition. Of course, when I went into prison, I went into an extreme darkness.
Uh-huh.
I was filled with rage. I was filled with
Mm.
hate because of what happened to me. I just went straight into victim,
Oh.
and it was, um, I found ways to get that out of me, albeit uh, pedophiles. The biggest thing was that when pedophiles were coming in, they were free reign to do whatever you wanted to do to them. And
Oh.
I got into that type of darkness of
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
taking my hate and anger out on these people.
Yeah.
And
Who had themselves had probably been abused pretty badly as
uh,
kids, you know.
and
Yeah.
it was the last one. His name was Michael Jameson, and I held him in my hands, and he was a bloody mess. And it just hit me. I'm looking at this person, and it hit me almost instantly. Like, what are you doing? Why are you hurting this person? You know, and it was just it was just something that was shown to me in that moment, that everything I'm doing to these people is what I want to do to myself.
Oh.
And it was all of the ugliness in me, the fears in me, and all of these things that I was just taking out on other human beings for no particular reason, simply because I was told or had a stigma about or anything of that nature. And that individual was the last one. And from that point, um, there was a visit with my daughter shortly after that, where she came to me, and she was just still a child. She was only about 4 or 5 years old.
Oh.
And it was the leaving of that visitation and me knowing everything that was going on in her life, and her grasping at my clothes, crying because she wanted to stay with me. She didn't want to go home.
Mm.
And I had to physically grab my only child's arms and rip them off of me and send her away because I'm in prison.
Yeah.
And it was just all of that happening all at once, that I went back to my cell, Miss Penny, and I literally beat the hell out of myself. I
Oh.
started punching myself. I started slapping myself. I was just so angry. Like we were just talking about what I was
Mm.
doing to the other people. I just did it to myself. I was so angry at how ignorant I was, because it was that conflict within me of that greatness that I knew I could be, but yet I was doing it through a egotistical manner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what the design of my life was about, you know? And
Yeah.
so it was that transition. It was Tony Robbins. It was The Secret. It was your
Yeah.
book, Frequency, that
Mm.
opened my eyes to really what was going on inside of me, and allowing myself the courage to be okay with it. All of the abuse I took as a kid, all of
Mm-hmm.
the abandonment, all of these things, it allowed me to be okay with all of that, and to fall in love with myself, of
Yeah.
who I am through my experiences and what I've endured. And that opened the doors for all of the spiritual stuff to come in.
Yeah.
All of the enlightenment, all of the care, the love, and the confidence to showcase this. Because I think that a lot of human beings have this love in them, but because society has been so hard, and it's shown the human being that being this soft, lovable creature can get you hurt, people are really scared to really show that love, because you're looked at as a wimp, or maybe even
Mm.
gay in some sense, because you want to hug somebody or talk love to somebody. You're fruity or weird, or all of this stigma really just encloses people to sharing that inner self. And me, I just didn't care anymore. I just wanted to love. I just wanted to give love, and it just kept growing. The
Yeah.
more knowledge I got, the more I was releasing that anger, the more I forgave myself, the more I opened doors for love, peace, comfort to come in.
Yeah. But it starts with that choice you made, that realization. It's almost like when you hurt yourself instead of somebody else hurting you, you couldn't blame something somewhere. It was all of a piece at that point. The pain, being hurt and hurting became one thing. It's an interesting way of collapsing the polarity that you thought of to do, you know,
It was
very,
it was all of that. It was realizing that me blaming everybody and everything my whole life only amounted me into getting into some of the darkest, most violent prisons in America.
yeah.
And at what point do you want it to change? Because I'm looking around and I'm saying, this is not me. I'm not supposed to be here.
I know a couple of big old bull queers that just love to make your acquaintance. Especially that big white mushy butt of yours.
God, I don't belong here.
We have a winner!
I want to go home.
And it's fat ass by a nose!
you know and it was just figuring out, how did I get here? How am I in
Mhm.
solitary confinement in Beaumont, Texas, one of the worst federal prisons in America? It's like, how? Because I
And
knew
why
that and
did you?
why?
Yeah, why? Yeah, so interesting.
And it just led to, like we went over with the numbers, the honesty,
Mm-hmm.
it just led to, because you're a liar, you're a cheat, you're a manipulator, you're a gaslighter, you're always looking for the easy way out. And it just, a rush of that came into me, and it was all true.
You
And all
loaded
I had,
yourself up with lies so that you could really, really feel what that feels like.
and
It's
that is
painful.
exactly it.
Yeah.
That is exactly it. Is a tumultuous, chaotic life of
Mhm.
constantly having to chase every lie that you've told, right? Because nobody wants to come across as a liar. Nobody wants to be known as a liar.
Right.
So when you're lying, you got to keep track of all of those lies, all of those stories,
That's a lot of
all
work.
of the people that come, hey, you remember you were, yeah, I remember that. And it's a complete lie. And you got to remember all of that. And
Yeah.
I asked myself, why? Why am I doing all of this? Why am I doing all of this to give the perception that I'm a good person when I could just be a good
When you actually
person?
are.
And it was that. It was just having the confidence of just being a good person.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Being a truth teller, being somebody who's vocal, causes for a lot of ostracizing, a lot of
Mhm.
judgment, a lot of persecution. But
Yeah.
when you have that confidence of who you are, and you've been through all of that, you know, you find that you're untouched in all of that judgment, because you know who you are and what you've gone through, and you know what you're doing. And this is what I explain to the representatives and the lawmakers and things like that. And I say, who would you rather want to take direction from? Somebody who's never faced their own corruption, or somebody who's faced their corruption and overcame it and changed their life? For me, I'd rather deal with somebody who knew they were corrupt and fix that, versus
Mhm.
somebody who has not felt or realized or recognized
Oh, yeah.
that they're corrupt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, when it
Good
comes to
point.
the anybody coming out of addiction, anybody coming out of incarceration, anybody coming out of large, heavy strife, and they found a way to change who they are, these are phenomenal human beings,
Mhm.
phenomenal human beings. And we persecute them simply because they were an addict, or simply because they were in prison. Never mind what you're doing now. You used to do this.
I forget who said it, but it was something about the thing that the ignorant people or, fear the most is virtue.
because that virtue shines a light on them.
Hmm.
It shines a light on them. And that's why being the
And they
truth
can't
teller.
manipulate it.
No.
Yeah.
And the ignorant, the only thing that they have is control. And if you take that control away from them, then that's where they realize that they're ignorant, right? And nobody likes to feel ignorant, because
Mm,
once you feel ignorant, then you have to do something about that, which is why they say, ignorance is bliss.
yeah.
Because it's fun to remain ignorant and not worry about what's going on in life and just play all day and not, have to face responsibilities. But that's not life, and that's not the natural order of things.
No.
And sooner or later, it's going to smack you in the face. And that's what it did with me.
Yeah, that's a really telling it really well, I think, and it's helpful. So helpful for, I mean, even people who aren't criminals and stuff, who haven't done that, but they're doing it in a small way.
Well,
I don't know, it's
it's
parallel to me in a certain way, is that there's an ignorance there that they don't want to understand. They don't want to or participate or contribute something. I haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet, but I'm thinking about it a lot lately. Like,
it's the story of life. It's the yin and the yang, and it's understanding. I just put a post out on Facebook about that.
huh,
And it's understanding, you know, we're not going to have happiness every day.
right.
And the ego, the selfishness of us wants that happiness. Every day we want to be happy. But that's just not life. Life comes in cycles, and there's a balance to it. And when
Mhm.
we start to understand that my miserable day may be somebody else's best day, and I want that person to experience and have joy within their best day, just like I do for me. I know what it feels like to have a great day. And I
Mhm.
want that human. And just because I'm not having a great day today, I know tomorrow I may. But let this human being enjoy their great day today.
Mhm.
And
And then
it's
if you zero in more, like on the snaggy days, that frustrate you, if you go down into one snag or one task, you see it's a gift to you. It's like if you really just be with it, it's not a bad thing. It's something that's showing you something that's in your way. And then you get it. And as soon as you do, it evaporates, and now you're on to more joy or enjoyment, And but that's partly what I've been really learning a lot, is that, oh, I've had like, I bought this thing on Amazon and returned it, and I only got, like, instead of an $18 refund, I got a $2.73 refund. And I'm like, what? Now I have to make another phone call, and it's just stupid stuff like that that is cluttering the field, where why can't it just work smoothly? Well, is that me not working smoothly in that moment?
right. Well,
So
that's the ego self. That's the ego
yeah,
self wanting it to work smoothly. But for
yeah,
me, it's it's always the question as to, well, let's see where this goes. Why is this happening this way?
that's
And
it,
let's
yeah.
see where this goes and what the outcome of it is.
Mhm.
And you turn it into kind of an inquisition, because the brain
Right.
loves to learn
Yeah, an experiment,
and
like you're
experiment.
yeah, yeah, it's great.
So I've found these little frustrations, daily frustrations, like you say, I've learned how to turn them into little experiments. I
Mhm.
have fun with it. Sometimes I may call somebody, like you say, I got to call somebody. I may throw my voice off and talk in another voice. Just you have fun with it. It doesn't have to be a frustration.
Yeah,
And what you described is how I overcame prison,
yeah,
because prison is designed to be and look a certain way.
yeah,
But that certain way is only by your perception. You can look at it in any kind of way that you want. And when I stopped looking at prison as the big scary thing where all low lives go to and ignorant people, and I started realizing what I had, and what I had was an opportunity that most human beings on planet Earth do not have. And that is a large amount of time to process and think and grow. Because
Well,
that's
and be around people that had similar early experiences and reactions that are in a certain frequency level as you, so that you're in the soup of it and you can't not get it, you know?
that as well. That was part of my growth, was the ability to sit with serial killers, to sit with pedophiles, to sit with psychopaths and
Mm,
question them, talk with them,
mm,
be inquisitive about how and what makes their brain work. You know what I mean? Because yes, I went from from abusing pedophiles to that inquisition as to how and what made you this way,
mm,
right? And that was a learning, but it was for me understanding that I'm in a key position in my life that I don't have to worry about taking the kids anywhere. I don't have to worry about distractions. I don't have to worry about bills or none of this stuff. I'm in a place that I have all the time that I want to myself. And that is what gave me the opportunity to grow the way that I did,
mm-hmm.
because I started looking at it as a monastery instead of a prison.
It is. I was just thinking that. It's very akin to that. Yeah,
And
amazing.
it changed my
Yeah.
outlook. I wasn't angry in prison anymore. I became tolerable, and everything changed from there.
Mhm.
Everything.
Mhm.
And before you know it, I'm getting 4 years knocked off my sentence and I'm going home.
Right.
And that's how life works. That is
Yeah,
how it works. I
right.
believe that life puts you in key positions. And once you get it, life will move you from that position and put you into the next one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow,
So
this
this
was
is
good. Yeah.
great discussion. Awesome
Yeah. Thank
discussion
you so
as
much.
always.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for bringing this to me.
Good. We're off to the right start this year then, I think.